So about time I carried on this brilliancy series, which I've not really done any videos on since last summer, because I thought it's time I'd do a video on probably the best game of all time, which is Kasparovs' Immortal Rook Sacrifice. Well, double rook sacrifice, but I'll call it rook sacrifice because the second one wasn't accepted. But of course, it'd have been over a lot quicker if you had accepted it. So it was Gary Kasparov, the greatest player of all time, rated 28-12 at the time, versus Veselin Topalov, who was 2700 and has been a world champion fairly recently. Since I think it was from like 2006, 2008 or something, I can't remember. And I've got my notes out. I've got the chess base version, which is done by someone called Stahl, or whatever he's called. Some stuff by Lubomir Fernatnich. Sorry, I can't do pronunciations. But anyway, I hope you enjoy the video of this incredible game. Well, towards the end of his career, which this is because it was in 1999, which is at the twilight of his career. He used to play e4 rather than d4 because he played d4 a lot in the 80s, so he played e4. And we had a surprise where Topalov played d6 to Pirc when he usually plays the Sicilian. So this must have been some kind of surprise weapon. And after d4, knight f6, knight f3. And Kasparov also played f3 a lot and tried to transpose it into a Siamese King's Indian, but Topalov sweats the King's Indian, so maybe not the best idea. After g6, bishop e3, bishop g7. This is already given a question mark, exclamation mark, because I think it loses a move when Black has to capture on h6 when White plays queen d2, bishop h6, because White's setting up the 150 attack, even though it's been played by someone who's about twice that easy after b. Knight g4 actually isn't that great. It looks tempting, but bishop g5 seems to the bishop seems to play that square anyway, because White's just going to play queen d2, bishop h6, and f6 g5 is weakening. So the best move is to play c6. So bishop g7, queen d2, c6, preferring maybe b5 and f3. So the idea is that it doesn't want the queen and bishop battery harassed by knight g4. I won't go over opening too much in detail, by the way, because these long variations later. b5, gaining queenside expansion. Knight g2, just developing. Knight bd7, bishop a6, takes, and bishop b7. So black has to castle queenside with the queen stopping it from castling kingside. a3, a good prophylactic move against anything like a5, b4. e5, striking back in the centre. Castles queenside and now queen e7, preparing queenside castling. Now Kasparov plays the typical move to get the king out of the way with king b1, which is a good move to play after castling queenside. a6, knight c1, a good move, preparing to recycle a knight to a5, which is permanently weakened and hard to stop. Castles queenside and now knight b3, and Topalov senses danger and plays e takes d4. c5 isn't good because after d5, White's just going to play knight b5 and b4. Black's bishop's dead and they'll just strangle him. So Black needs to open the centre to get some counterplay, so he takes. Takes with a rook. c5, because now d5 isn't possible because the pawn's off the board. d1 and now knight b6. Trying to again bust open the centre with d5. White now plays g3, preparing to put the bishop on h3, and this was given an exclamation mark by Fernatnich. It also will go with tempo, it's with check, but of course Topalov knows about these consolidating king moves, so he plays king b8. And then Kasparov goes in with his knight to a5, which actually isn't that great. Maybe better was bishop h3, and then say d5, e takes, d5. Go for white. Or maybe queen f4, bringing the queen back, because now black has castled queenside, the queen don't need to be there to stop the king from castling. Pressures the weak d6 point, White pins it. Say king a7, and now maybe bishop takes b5, knight h5, queen there, takes there, 3 pawns apiece. take that one as well. And bishop d5. This engine check this. It's been a bit slow. What's this doing now? It is given as 0.31, 0.37 now. So white's got 4 pawns at piece, but it's given a bit equal. Just engine off. It's back to the game. 95, bishop a8, because of course don't want his light score as weak and as bad as that, so we preserve the bishop. Bishop h3, developing the light square bishop to a good diagonal. d5, hitting him in the centre. Now queen a f4 with check. King a7 and rook he1. Now after d4, it looks like black has got a very good position, and in fact he has got quite a good position. Now this is better than opening the position up, because after takes, then we have rook takes e4, queen takes, check. Knight c6 with unstoppable mate threat on a7. So black cannot open the position up. d4. Now knight d5, and now knight to f takes d5 is bad because of takes. And if queen d6, then queen takes f7 check. So he has to take with the b knight, and after e takes d5, queen d6. Again, it looks like black's got a very good position, but now comes a terrific move, and if you haven't seen this game before and want to try and guess it, then please stop the video now. Well, first of all, before I tell you to move, trading queens off would be bad. So after they come off, you see black's got a strong centre, and the d5 pawn's about to fall off the board, say this. And black's just a pawn up with a better position and on course to win. If this continuation, there we have takes, and black's going to win his pawn back with a very good. Black's probably going to win the f4 pawn, the f3 pawn, and the c6 pawn, so that's also a lot better for black. So with 2 pawns up. So he plays this brilliant move, rook takes d4. Of course, if he takes the queen, then she's going to take back and be a pawn up. So, and he actually blunders, Topalov blunders and takes the rook. Now, king b6 is actually given as equal by annotators, but there's no analysis on this to back it up, so I have to create my own with the help of an engine. So load up the engine again. It's given us slightly better for black. Yeah, the best move is given as b4. Takes. Now f7 isn't dropping, we check like it was earlier, so we can, if takes, then we have. And this is a comfortable position for black with at least equality. So this proves that king b6 would have saved the game for black and even maybe given winning chances. But instead he takes the rook. And now the point is this brilliant move. Again, if you want to try and spot it, please stop the video now. Rook e7 check, another rook sacrifice which can't be accepted, because if it is, then this leads to a forced checkmate. Again, that's not been put on, so king b8 check. Well, this is deadly anyway. But yeah, that's what happens. And if king goes back to b8, then we take on d4. Again, the rook's immune, so knight d7, and it takes. And now bishop takes d5 is given, and then c4 is decisively better for white. So as a result, the king has to run. And then he sacks a knight as well, because he takes this pawn with check. But the king has to take the knight, so it's forced even further, because if the queen blocks, then queen takes f6, queen d6, and now an absolute brilliant move to win the game. It is bishop e6. Absolutely scintillating, because of course if the bishop's taken, then white can take with the rook, and then the queen will fall. And otherwise that f7's being pressured and everything, and say bishop takes d5, then the move that actually wins is b4. And then there's just threats like bishop takes, and then rook b7 mate. If the white queen's taken, it's just all over. So this move bishop e6 is just one of many stunning resources in this game. I wonder how much Kasparov actually calculated, or how much he did on intuition. King takes a5, now b4 check, because of course when you've got the king on the run, you try and force it away from its own army and closer towards yours. So king a4, and now he plays queen c3, threatening queen b3 mate, and this wins, but a better win was the move rook a7. Now if knight takes d5, then we see the point. Rook takes a6 check, queen takes a6, and now queen b2, threatening queen b3 mate. So if knight c3 check, queen takes c3, and bishop d5 to try and stop it. White has the terrific move king b2, which threatens a queen sack on b3, and then black's king will be mated by a box of pawns. So the only way to stave it off is to hang the queen with queen e6, after which white can just take it and then do it anyway. So in that position where black's king is just made by a box of pawns, that's brilliant, that just highlights it. That's one of the most aesthetically pleasing positions of all time. So you see rook a7 has this deadly threat of taking an a6, deflecting the queen away, then white retreats the queen back, threatening mate, and then if the mate's stopped by taking the pawn d5, white just moves his king up and there's no way to stop a queen sack on b3. So that would be game over. So if he plays bishop b7 to protect a6, we have, well, you just take the bishop, and after say, if knight takes d5, another terrific resource with bishop d7, because if rook takes d7, again with queen b2, putting queen b3 mate, and then if we have dirty check here to stop it, check, and then this very tactical move stopping the queen b3 check. The killing move is rook a7, where the queen's taken in, rook takes a6 is mate, and there is no way to stop that while maintaining defense of the b3 square, where so black's king's mated next move either way. So he has to, can't take the bishop, he has to play rook a8 to further protect a6, and then we have bishop takes b5, a takes b5, rook a7. So if the rook's taken and queen takes a7, checkmates on the spot. So queen a6 has to be played, and then instead of taking the queen, you play queen takes d5, and after if the rook's taken, then we just mate on b3. So knight takes d5 is no good. If queen takes d5, then the move is rook b6, threatening a mate on a6. So if a5, then we play rook a6. If rook a8, then the next brilliant move is queen e3, threatening stuff like king b2 and queen b3 again. And in fact, there's like no way to stop it. If rook takes a6, then we play king b2. If takes, we have check, and mate. And again, if rook a8, we just munch the knight, and if a5, then just bishop f1, and bishop takes b5's coming in. Black's losing like all his pieces and getting mated. His king's just too weak. So this brilliant analysis done by this was actually found by Kavalek. This when with rook a7, and the variations have been compiled on the chess base by Stoll. Very pronounce it. Stohl. It just shows the beauty of this game. But he plays queen c3, which also wins. If bishop takes d5, by the way, king b2 with the same deadly threat of the queen sack on b3 cannot be stopped. So that'll be game over. So queen takes d5, and now the point being now is that king b2 loses to queen d4, which forces the queens off, and then black's just a rook and a knight up. So white can resign. Rook a7, threatening. Rook takes a6 mate. So bishop b7 to stop that. If queen c7, which looks deadly, black has queen d1 check. So rook takes b7. And of course then the rook can't be taken because the queen b3 mate. So black's had to toss away a piece there. And he plays queen c4, which isn't the best defence. Better was rook h8. Just getting like another piece into maybe some counterplay. Because if rook a7, then rook d6 protects it. And if king b2, then we have to think the point of rook e8 is that now the e5 square is protected and queen e5 stops the deadly mate threats and wins for black because the queen's coming off. Rook b6. You see, Kasparovs had to be extremely careful in some of these lines. And after rook a8, the incredible move is where your bishop is an example of the bishop switching diagonal. If you shadow bishop and it goes bishop f1, and there is a deadly threat of rook d6, deflecting the queen away because the queen can't come to c4 now, and that can't really be stopped. Just engine check it. Is there any way to stop rook d6? Winning the queen. There's a rook e1 check. And the analysis stops here. So queen takes e1. I think he stops here because white's a pawn up with black's king being more exposed and the engines give it over a point advantage, but that's not completely clear cut. If white is black's having to throw away a whole rook to stop mate, with queen being lost. But queen c4. Now white can take like a breather and now take the knight, so he's won 2 pieces back, so he's actually got a bishop and pawn for a rook now, so he's hardly down any material, and black's king's still very weak. If white takes an a3, if rook a8 trying to protect a6, then queen b6, and if a5, then rook a7 is going to be checkmating. If check, king b2, and now rook a8. If now it looks like black can like kind of win by forcing the queens off because white's going to lay his pieces back after takes. Rook d6 and rook e7. White has got 2 pawns for the exchange in a crushing position, so that isn't good. Just put the bishop on the e6. In fact, it's just going to play bishop e6 to b3 mate. Or in fact, like he'll win that. The rook will have to sacrifice itself a bishop, and then white will just be up material. 2 pawns up and easily winning. So rook a8. Queen b6. You see, when the queens come off, black still be mated by the bishop on b3. I've check. Queen takes, rook takes. Rook takes s7, a5. Bishop e6 again. Takes, check. Takes there. Rook takes b4, now c3. Traps the black rook and wins. And if the king goes back after rook takes h7, white has got 3 pawns for the exchange, and this is going to be winning as well. But this is a better try. There's still difficulties for white, but after king takes a3, there's like forced win with queen takes a6 check, king takes b4, c3, another brilliant pawn sack. If the king comes to b3, then we have check, check. Rook e7, cutting the king off the e file, and bishop f1 is going to be lethal next turn. King takes c3, queen a1. If king b4, then we have check. If the queen blocks, then we can win the queen like that. Check. Now again the queen falls. If the king d2, queen b2, king d1. If king e3, then rook e7 is deadly. So king d1. And Fanatic says that you are not dreaming, but king did go all the way from e8 to d1. Brilliantness. And in fact now, we see if you can pause the video and work out the final combination to wrap up the point in this brilliant and beautiful game. Again, it's the bishop switching diagonal. You play bishop f1 because the bishop's immune due to mate threats, and Black's trick was actually to play rook d2, but now the counter trick is to play rook d7 and just pin the rook so the queen can't be taken. And due to mate threats, Black is now lost because he has to take the rook, and after his queen falls, and although this would usually be enough material for the queen, his h8 rook's now attacked and there's a threat of queen c1 mate, so he has to take the bishop and then the rook's taken. And White is now easily winning. I mean, he plays in a few more moves because he has got this pass c pawn and his king's close to protecting it. It's just over really. So rook d3, queen a8, queen comes back into the game. It's time to stop this pawn. Queen a4, stopping it, queen any further. King e1 and now f4, f5, king c1, rook d2, and after queen a7 I'm followed by a deadly penetration on g1. He's going to lose his pawn, and simple task of mopping up them kingside pawns, and then the queen will overwhelm the rook. So Topalov finally resigns in this absolutely amazing game where Topalov's king gets sucked from e8 to d1. This is one of Kasparov's finest games out of many fine games, and why he was such a feared player. And I hope you enjoyed my version and analysis of it, and please leave any comments and thoughts on it, and I will try and get like another person's version as a video response, so you can have like more versions, but of course mine will be best. Anyway, please leave any comments and thoughts. Thanks very much.